All right, everybody. Welcome. It is Thursday at high noon, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That means only one thing, the Stoned Fruit Roll-Up. I am Rebecca Gunter, your humble host for this weekly live show. We are here on YouTube at Stone Fruit and also on LinkedIn. This is your business variety show that works to roll up our sleeves and get to work on all things entrepreneurship, business, and branding, which is super fun, an experimental space, the entrepreneurial sandbox, if you will. It is a 1 hour show in which we feature all kinds of conversations and quirky happenings around the wonderful world of bold brand building. Thank you so much for being here, friends and family. Today, we are experimenting wildly, one of my favorite things to do, with one of the most exciting segments that we do here on the Stone Fruit Roll Up, and that is a live coaching session. What an air horn. Live coaching is so fun to me because it really is kind of like an exercise in what is awesome about the work that we do here at Stone Fruit, bringing forth the soul of your business and co-creating these wildly wonderful, brave, and bold authentic brand presentations. This is all about the expressive side of your brand, not the functional side of your brand. So thinking about logos and fonts and colors and style sheets, etc. That's really your functional brand. Your expressive brand is how you live and breathe it every day, whether it's blog posts or newsletters or the way you talk in a sales call or your weekly live show. It's how you're rolling up, which is pretty fun to work on if you are a creative type like myself. So let me not take up too much more of our precious minutes and bandwidth. Setting up the top of the show, I'd love to bring out our hot seat diva today, Miss Julia Darlington, who is my partner in crime over there in our cohort-driven participation, and Gill Moakes, transformational business coach and friend of the show, friend and fellow fruitster. She has a mastermind group, and when I asked for if there was anyone wanted to come on the show and be live today and get some coaching, Julia was the first to raise her hand. And I'm so excited about that fact because we've been trying to get together for a while and have a connected conversation. She's one of my favorite people to listen to in the mastermind conversations over there at Rise Together. And she's follows some of my writing on Substack and just has been a fun person to interact with. So I'm super excited to see her today. She's going to tell us a little story of her career journey and how she's making a big transition and pivot into something new and exciting and what turns her on about that. And then we'll roll up our sleeves and get to work on the actual blood, sweat, and tears of brand building, because Julia really wants to effectively communicate who she is and not sound flat or like anybody else. And that's where I come in. So without further ado, please welcome Julia Darlington.
Hello. What a lovely introduction. Thank you, Rebecca.
Indeed. My pleasure, Julia. Thank you so much for coming on the roll up today and volunteering to be in the hot seat. You had no idea what to expect. How did you get the bravery to raise your hand? What inspired you to just go rogue and be like, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going anyway. I'm going into it.
You know what? There's been a big shift, actually. For me, over the last 6 months, a year, of just thinking, if not now, when? Really, if not now, when? I hit a big milestone this year in September. I hit 60. I think, can I say bloody hell on here?
My God, we're so blue. I could barely turn Kathleen off last week.
Oh, good. I just think I've spent nearly 60 years on this planet, and I've done some amazing things and some not so amazing things. And I think, what am I waiting for? Time is going, so I will jump into all of it, and
feet
just see where we go.
Feet first. What has been the coolest thing that you've noticed in your own professional journey since you've adopted this mantra of, if not now, then when?
putting myself out there, not removing that huge fear that most of us harbour to a lesser or greater degree of, oh, what if somebody doesn't like it? What if somebody judges me badly? I know at the beginning of my journey into entrepreneurship, having worked in corporate for so many years, it felt really scary to actually, I wouldn't have used these words then because I didn't have the words to use, but to be unashamedly me, authentically me. And the realization, which I couldn't have known at the time, I was me when I worked in corporate, but there was a big part of me that wasn't, that was conforming, that was, to get up that ladder and to be successful, you don't want to push too hard, you don't want to rock the boat too far. Whereas over the last 6 months, a year, like I said, and the journey, what was the point of me doing all of this if it wasn't to actually explore and become the fullest version of myself and be apologetic about it? Unapologetic, sorry.
Freudian slip. When you say one
Yes.
thing, but mean your mother.
Yeah. So it's been, and I mean, the journey of entrepreneurship is a rocky road, and it's, there
At
are
least you
some
get
very
to be at least you get to be yourself, though. It is a rocky road, but at least you get to be yourself.
Exactly.
I have this little contention that corporate is really, and it's not everything is this. It's really live action role playing. So like what area of your life are you not kind of just playing a role? But
Yeah.
live action role playing is like war reenactments or a vampire troupe or whatever, where your people are getting together and they're wearing the costumes and they're saying the lines and they're actively acting the roles. I think of corporate as live action role playing, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. When you embrace the idea that like I'm really only just kind of working off of a script, I think it can be freeing, but also lead to an existential crisis of like I'm spending my energy here. I really do care. I think most women who are in your shoes really did care about the work, really cared about the company, really cared about other people, but the LARPing is just exhausting of like, don't push too far. What's the line? It's I have a client who says that culture is the unwritten rules of what it takes to be successful here. Shout out to Faith Johnson. And I think that is such a profound way of thinking about culture, because they're not written down. So you have to guess what they are. And that takes so much energy.
Absolutely.
When you're like LARPing and guessing and trying not to kind of mess things up for yourself. So you gave up one kind of set of fear of like, why am I wasting my life not being myself? And you embraced another set of fear, which is around hanging out your own shingle. Tell us about the transition that you made kind of as a corporate defector and how you got brave enough to do it in the first place.
I will try and be succinct. As you've probably realized, Rebecca, I can speak a lot.
My favorite.
How did I make the decision? I started off my career in the fashion industry. So I love fashion and I love clothes and I love the industry and I love manufacturing and I love everything about it.
Oh my God, explains a lot. You're so gorgeous all the time.
Oh,
I just hear like your clothes. I almost want to reach through the screen and like feel the cuff of your top. It's just so beautiful.
Well, every item has a story. I used to think, oh yeah, I bought this when I was in Korea and I bought that when I was there. And it's all got an emotion attached to it, actually, which is quite nice. I'd been in the industry. My mum was a dressmaker. She inspired me hugely. I loved the creative element of it, but I knew I wasn't a designer, and made the decision to go into the world of buying because it's very commercial and creative. So it was bringing together business and commerciality, and ultimately the buyer's the decision maker with regards to what you're going to buy and how many you're going to buy and how much you're going to charge and managing the margin. So I love the business commercial element of it, but I love the creativity as well. So I stepped into that, and I started out in a very corporate organization. I started out at M&S, Marks and Spencer. And this is a long time ago, and the world was a very, very different place then. So in terms of conforming and in terms of politics, my God, it was a baptism of fire. I'd never experienced anything like it.
I love that expression.
And so male dominated in terms of people at the top of the tree. And at the industry, I mean, that's one of the reasons, we'll get onto it, that one of the passions for me doing what I do, I've worked in an industry that is predominantly female for 30 odd years, and yet the number of females sitting at that top table are not representative at all over the overall picture. And I know, I've done my research in terms of the numbers of things, definitely from a UK perspective, the numbers are getting better, but I still don't believe actually the numbers tell you the full story. So I worked through, big corporate, I worked for privately owned companies, I worked for startups, I worked for many, many brands. And to cut a very long story short, became rather disillusioned with the whole thing. Very stressful, very fast paced. You're only as good as your last sale. I mean, that is so true. You could have done the best increases last year, and if you don't hit the targets this year, you're actually not considered in a very favourable light. Anyway, I had been playing around with thinking, I can't carry on doing this. My husband, I've got a child with my husband, who's not a child anymore, he's a man, 22. And when I had him 22 years ago, he was very, very unwell when I gave birth, life threatening, and was whizzed off to Great Ormond Street, for those of you that know Great Ormond Street, who did miraculously and saved his life. But at the time, we then made a decision that I would carry on working and my husband would become a house husband, very much based on finances. So I love
that. I love it. What a fantasy.
But I also had that pressure, as many women in my circle do, of being the sole breadwinner as well. So working in a very pressured environment and being the sole breadwinner.
And also, I'll add that studies have shown that the women who are sole breadwinners also take on more of a lift of the domestic work at home for, I don't know what we're making up for in patriarchy, but there's some sort of like guilt mitigation that means that women who are the sole or primary breadwinners actually put in more hours at home because of some sort of weird power dynamic. So you've got, you've got a kind of like a health concern with your son. You've got kind of that reverse power dynamic. You're putting in more time at home. You're the principal breadwinner. We're in corporate. That's taking everything you have and more. Where's your breaking point with that?
Well, my husband was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. And I think there's to add into that, because it's been proven, hasn't it, statistically, but there's also an element, and I can only talk for myself, I actually did want to spend more time with my son. But in our situation, as like I said, for many other couples and people in different situations, that wasn't an option. It wasn't. So there was guilt, but there was also, I can say it now, I wouldn't have said it at the time, but an element of bitterness about, but I want to be the one at home. I want to be the one staying with my son. But anyway, here we are. My son's really fit and healthy and everything's wonderful in that sense.
What's his name?
But Zach.
Team Zach. What's up, Zach? I hope you're watching. Shout out in the comments if you are.
Yeah, he's not, because actually he's just gone out. But
well, catch the replay.
Yeah,
Zach.
absolutely.
And he is, on the replay.
He is one of my biggest supporters. He's amazing. So I went through all of that. I carried on working, and don't get me wrong, I had some amazing times, but got to a point, and at the time, to add into this is a bit of a I didn't fully appreciate that I was perimenopausal and was going through all that glorious journey that so many of us go through. And as we go
And
through
don't
that,
talk about. And don't talk about.
exactly. I talk a lot about it now, but
Thank you.
and I was really considering, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can't do this forever. I don't want to do it forever. And then I got an opportunity out of the blue to move to Australia, to work over there, to head up a brand over in Australia. So I, to a degree, dragged my son and my husband kicking and screaming, because I don't think either one of them really wanted to do it. But we got to that point of, I remember sitting with my husband in the sitting room about, well, are we going to do it? I said, we can't stick one foot in over there and have one foot over here. We either go or we don't. We either say yes or we say no. If it doesn't work out, we come back. And if it does, we stay. So we jumped. So my son was 10 at the time. So
How adventurous.
yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I say it was amazing, but it was bloody hard as well.
Oh, yeah.
So we went to the other side of the world. And I think as many of us do, I thought, yeah, it's all going to be fine now. It's all going to be fine now. Everything's going to be fine. And then over a period of time, that huge realization, no, actually, I've just taken with me what wasn't right. It doesn't matter that I'm on the other side of the world. I have to deal with my stuff. I have to deal with this. It's not going to go away. And I reached, to cut a very long story short, I reached a point of, no, stop. And I had a conversation with my husband and said, I am not doing this anymore. I can't. And if that means we have to go back to the UK, then so be it. But I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm going to stop, and you can start. And actually, the biggest learning from that, Rebecca, was from a universe point of view, I had to stop. To let the universe. My husband then got a job literally within a matter of a week or two. So it's almost from an energetic perspective, I was blocking it and telling
so powerful.
I couldn't, there wasn't an option. But actually, the minute I stepped off, the opportunity came up for him to step in. So that started a very, very different journey. I did then get another role as an MD for an organisation over there, but at the same time, I made the decision.
What's an MD?
Which would be managing director.
Thank you.
I did then make the decision to fulfill a lifelong ambition to train as a coach. So I joined the coaching
Why did
institute.
you want to do? Yeah, why did you want to do that? How was that a lifelong ambition?
My very, very first experience of being coached personally was when I first became a director for a company, actually around the time that Zach was born, actually, because I went on maternity leave when I was in that organisation. And I met two phenomenal women, Trudy Ryan and Angela Rutherford Adams, who had a coaching and development business, and they were brought in to support myself and my fellow, there was 4 of us, first appointment leadership directors. We were a leadership team. And I just found it transformative, absolutely transformative.
How?
And I've still got all the training material that I had with them, from 22 years ago. I mean, really, really powerful stuff.
How did it transform you?
Sorry?
How was it transformative?
Opening up perspectives that I had never, ever considered, that I didn't know. I mean, coaching is about opening up these windows of opportunity and potential and different perspectives through really effective questioning, and opening up this whole world. Although I didn't know all this at the time. I mean, I've been on a very long journey of discovery and learning since then, but the power of your brain, of your mind, of how the power of your unconscious mind that you're not conscious of, it was just phenomenal. And having, for the first time, I think, in my working life, somebody that I could just offload to, and they could make a semblance of sense to it and talk it back to me, and then put together not a roadmap, because that wasn't how I was working with Trudy or Angela at the time, but remove blocks and barriers and open up possibility. And also they did a huge amount of work with us as a senior leadership team. So it was my first sort of forays, even though I've been a leader for a long time, really opening up, well, what does that actually mean? What does it look like? What are the different styles of leadership? How do you develop really effective teams? How do you coach them? How do teams form? All the stuff that I use now, actually, that learning from there. So I toyed with the idea over the years, but had again allowed myself, oh no, you won't have time for that. Oh no, your job's too busy. And yes, it was, but it was always not now. I haven't got a choice now. I can't do it now. Not now. And so I parked it. And then I got to this point when we were in Australia of it's now. I have to do this now. So we
How do you know that? How do you what happens for you in your spirit or your soul or your energy? Because throughout the story, you've come to these flashpoints of decision making where you describe it as being like all consumed or overwhelmed by knowing this truth that you didn't know before, and now everything that came before it is like inauthentic or intolerable or like so in the past, because this is the path that you're on now. Can you talk a little bit about that flashpoint or the intuition or your ability to discern it from the universe, if that's how you're wired? How does that come up for you that you make those decisions?
I don't think there were flashpoints in that they were sort of epiphanies and it suddenly happened. You know, that process of reaching that decision point was a long journey of contemplation and inward questioning, and also a lot of pain and a lot of, I don't know if this makes sense to some of the people that are watching this. I have always had something inside me that has told me that I'm here for something important. I'm here for something important. And I couldn't verbalize what that was. And I think when you start off on your journey in your career, you know, like for me, it was fantastic because it's an upward trajectory. You know, I joined as a graduate intake at Marks and Spencer, and then you get promoted to a assistant buyer, and then you become a range selector, and then you move on and you go up that ladder. And there's this very clear, well, there is in the industry that I've come from, a very clear sort of path that you follow. So it was always upward. It was always, oh, that's the next goal. That's the next target. That's where I want to get to next. I tell you, one of the things that was one of the biggest points that I remember and has been a big trigger to being where I'm at. When I was at university or Poly, I was at Manchester Polytechnic. The polytechnics don't exist anymore. They're called universities. I did a 4-year course, and in that course I did a year at uni, 6 months working in industry, a year at uni, 6 months working in industry, and a year at uni. And those 2 6-month periods working in industry were both for UK clothing manufacturers. And one of them was a supplier for Marks and Spencer. And I was down in the south of England, moved down to the south of England, and was looking for somewhere to rent because I needed to rent a room somewhere. And I think it was the CEO of the company, his daughter or somebody he knew, or I don't know, had a room in a house. And so they set up this meeting for me to meet this lady. And she seemed really old to me. I think she was about, I don't know, 25 or something, or 28. She seemed really, really, you know, oh my God, she knows everything. And I remember meeting her in Bristol. It was down in Bristol. I remember meeting a very nice lady. And we were sort of chatting about the room, and she was asking me what I was doing. And she asked me at the grand old age of, so how old must I have been? I must have been early 20s, 21 or something. I don't know, something like that. She asked me what did I want? What was my ambition? And I said, to be CEO. To be CEO. And she said, what? And I said, well, to be the top, to get to the top of the tree, to be at the top. And I will never forget this. She turned around to me and she said, oh, I think you're expecting a bit too much. And I was absolutely, my mother, my gorgeous, beautiful mother, rest her soul, always taught all of us, myself and my two siblings, I've got a brother and a sister, always said to us, reach for the stars, because even if you don't get there, you'll get far higher than if you reach for the top of the trees. And it was always about just do your best. Just, there was never any judgment. There was never any big, you've got to be really successful. You've got to be, none of that ever. It was always about just do your best and reach for the stars. And therefore, why would I think any differently? I'm not saying that I was supremely confident in everything, because I certainly wasn't. I really wasn't, actually, in lots of ways. Your blog that you put out yesterday, day before, resonated with me hugely with regards to body image and confidence, because I've had a big struggle with all of that.
Wow. Thanks, girl. Sometimes I think nobody reads it, so you're like, fill my bucket. Thank you.
Really powerful, really powerful. And I was just gobsmacked. I just thought, what? Again, that sort of feeling of,
why would you tell anybody that? That's a surefire way that they'll never make it. That's the way to fulfill that destiny, is to shut it down in the first place.
I know. So I can't even remember what the original question was. Oh, having those sort of points on the journey. I think when I made the decision to go to Oz, that was in for a penny, in for a pound. Why not? What have I got to lose? What have I got to lose?
What does in for penny, in for pound mean? What does that expression mean?
It's a very British expression, I suppose. Yeah. In for a penny, in for a pound. I suppose if you could put a penny in, put yourself a whole lot in.
What does it mean?
I don't know. I've never questioned that. I've never questioned that, Rebecca.
Does that mean that as much as you put in, you're going to get out of it? Or that you're going to...
I'm going to Google it afterwards, but I'd like to think it's, well, if you're going to put a penny in, because I imagine the expression probably was really old. If you're going to put a penny in, why not put the whole lot in?
I've heard that about sales too. If you're going to ask for $5,000, why not ask for 20?
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference? What's the difference? Well, or sponsorships or any kind of work.
But when I made the decision, I do know now, part of that decision-making process, not so much about going, but coming back and making the decision to jump into the coaching. I joined the Coaching Institute, as I said, in Melbourne, and did my training and made the decision that when we come back, I'm not going back into a company and being an employee. I'm going to consult to the fashion industry, and I'm going to build my coaching business. So that was very conscious. That was a very conscious decision. And I was given an opportunity to stay in Oz and take on another role, senior role in another big organization. And I turned it down because I did know, even though it meant that my husband and son had to come back to the UK, and there were some other complexities there. My mum had dementia, and I couldn't speak to her because she couldn't use the phone, and she didn't know who I was. Yeah. My dad was dealing, so there was all that going on. Also with our son, he was at that stage in education for the UK where he was having to choose what's called his GCSEs, which is a really quite pivotal, important stage in your decision making in terms of your career. And we knew when we went out that we had about 2.5 years, 2 years before he'd have to make that decision. So it all sort of fitted into that. So yeah, it was risky, and there's been some scary, hairy moments as a consequence of coming back. And you know, like I said, it's a rocky road, isn't it? But bloody hell, I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Well, why did you decide to go into coaching in the first place? Well, here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing like I've paid my dues in corporate culture and being in the leadership team. Like, it's time for me to evolve into something else. And I've heard I had such a powerful experience in my own coaching journey. The very first time that I interacted with somebody, I have a coach now. I just feel like this is the way. But I haven't heard kind of like what your yeah, what's the hill you're willing to, what's the hill you're dying on? Like, who are the people you're out here to kind of, I want to say save and put air quotes, but that's not even it at all. Help, transform, give the same experience you did. Like, why did you be like, yes, coaching, that's for me? Um, who did you think you would help?
When I started my training, oh my God. Yeah, I'm gonna be a coach and I'm gonna just it's all gonna be really great and it's gonna be really easy. In terms of developing a business, how naive. But I think if you don't have the naivety, you'd never jump in the first
Oh my God,
place.
it's like motherhood.
Oh,
If they told you how hard it was going to be, we'd all be like,
exactly.
hell no. And
Exactly.
I do advocate for more transparency around how hard mothership is, just like I advocate for more transparency around how hard it is to make a business for yourself.
Yeah.
But to our advantage, if you knew how much it was going to suck, you probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So
But you know what?
thank God we were a little blind.
If I'm really honest, because I can look at this now and I can see it now, I I didn't want to I didn't want to compromise myself anymore. And I did, that feeling of you sell your soul when you're working in an organization and high powered. Of course you do. You're getting paid for a reason. It's not 9 to 5. I was told very, very clearly the very first day of my training at Marks and Spencer, you work as hard as it takes to get the job done. I mean,
Yeah, what's the
that's the
expression, Julia? You have to work like you have no children and mother like you have no work, or something like, or
or
like you have
something
no
like that,
career.
something like that.
Yeah.
But it was, the fashion industry, especially now. I mean, it's a very different world we're in now. It's 24/7, isn't it? You can get anything you want from anywhere you want in the world, 24 hours a day, and your customers are global because of the internet, and therefore it's not just the clothing industry, it's any business, isn't it? Whereas, back when I began the journey, most businesses were national, they weren't international. We didn't have any, the internet hadn't been even considered. Well, maybe it had been conceived of, but we didn't know anything about it. Communication wasn't as it was now. There was no, I mean, it was another world, wasn't it? It was a complete another world. And I think, so when I came back to the UK, I was very, very fortunate and got an amazing consulting gig for an organisation which, very sadly, as so many have since the pandemic, have all disappeared. Absolutely catastrophic in terms of the retail industry in the UK and around the world. Very, very sad. But I got this amazing gig, 4 days a week, in effect being a brand director. So actually picking up the mantle of doing what I've been doing for many, many years, looking at a brand, looking at where it was positioned, looking at the product teams, looking at the sourcing and supply, and doing that whole kit and shebang for them, which I loved, and then had 3 days a week where I could sort of grow my coaching business. And if I look back, and if I'm really honest, I was just trading. I wasn't employed, but I was doing the job as if I was. I wasn't really
Yeah.
jumping into, I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to have my own business, because I was scared, because I didn't, again, I could say this now and I have language around it now, but I didn't think I was worthy. I didn't think I was good enough. One of my coaches that I had this amazing coach a couple of years ago. I worked with her for quite a long time. And one of the things that she said to me, which was really, really powerful. She said, why is it, or maybe she didn't say why is it, but she used this analogy. She said, you worked your way through the industry that you've been in for the last 30 plus years, and you've worked your way up and you get here. So you're up here, chief brand. Well, I wasn't chief brand officer at the time, actually. I became that after I'd actually stepped away. But senior brand director, heading up big, big businesses. And then you become a qualified coach. Why is it that you think you've got to start that here instead of you're here and then you go up from there? Whereas what you're doing is yeah, well, I'm really, because a consulting opportunity came along when I was working with her, and she said, your language, the way you talk, the way you express yourself when you're talking, yeah, consultancy, yeah, I can do that, and what you charge, and yeah, of course I can. Of course. But when you talk about coaching, you completely change your energy and you're sort of here. And I suppose I felt I haven't earned the points. I haven't earned the credibility yet. I didn't put together the knowledge, the understanding, the number of people I've coached within my positions as senior leader, and the knowledge and experience I had of driving businesses to success with my teams, obviously bringing teams with me and my peers, working with my peers. But it was a very interesting dialogue with her with regards to, I was doing that. That fear, that real fear of, what if I fuck this up? What if I bugger this up? What if I'm no good? What if I'm judged as, all the stuff we all carry around with us to certain degrees? Me, a coach, really? Can I really make a business out of this? All of that stuff. I hadn't faced and I hadn't dealt with, and that's been a long process to do that. So I think what I was trying to say is, none of this has been an epiphany and suddenly things have changed overnight. There's been markers along the way that, I'm an extended disc consultant, a level 2 extended disc consultant. If I don't know anybody out there who knows what
They
that
do. Don't forget
yeah.
Also, if you're watching now, to go back through old episodes of the Stoned Fruit Roll-Up and see Heather Lyle, who talks about communication strategy through the lens of disc. So we're very familiar here.
Fantastic. An extended disc, because it's an energetic profile, it's not a personality profile. You're not locked. You're not told this is what you are and therefore that's all you can be. These are the different energetic styles. Your profile, you have 2 profiles. One of them is your innate, natural, energetic way in which you approach your life. You're not conscious of it, but how you, in any scenario of your own choosing, that's how you would naturally, energetically show up in the world. And then we adapt ourselves to achieve success, whatever success looks like, means to anybody, because it's different for everybody, obviously. When you're operating out of your natural energetic profile, you could do it till the bloody cows come home, and it doesn't exhaust you, and it, like, I could stand on a stage and speak to people, woohoo, because I love it. And it's very much part of my natural energetic makeup. However, if I have to go into excruciating detail, organization, spreadsheets, I can do it. It exhausts me because it's not my natural energetic style. And the reason I'm explaining that is some of the decisions I've made. So I didn't know any of this then, because I hadn't trained to be a coach and I hadn't trained to be an extended disc consultant, and I hadn't done NLP and metadynamics and all the things that I've done now. But I now know that I love adventure and I love change. There are different words to it, different flavors to it, but as part of my natural, inherent, energetic profile, I get bored really easily. I love change. I love adventure. Going to Australia, whoa, yes, petrified, but yeah, hell yeah. I've changed my job very, very, every 2 years or so. I move on, because of the change, the opportunity, the adventure, the challenge. That I love sorting out problems. I love the complexity that my clients bring. And I say to them very often, because they just know that they're not in the place they want to be in, but I don't quite know why. And I said, it doesn't matter. Just throw it at me. Whatever's in your head, just throw it at me and I'll catch it. And then I'll talk it back to you as I've heard it into some semblance of order. And let's see where we go. And if we can get some clarity about what these I'm doing this with my hands, because it does feel very much the blocks, okay, well, we've got this and we've got this, and we've got this. Am I right? Let's talk through it. Now let's build some sort of framework or strategy or action plan. And if I think about it, that's exactly what I was doing when I was working in the fashion industry. Exactly what I was doing. It was about fashion, gorgeous, creativity, ooh, lovely, lovely, gorgeousness, and then bring it down into its commercial requisite parts in terms of critical path, in terms of price analogy and structure, margin management, budgeting, strategy, all of that sort of stuff. So I naturally love new, challenging, exciting
We have this
stuff.
in we have this in common.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know
we
what
have
your
this very much.
disqualification is?
I have no idea. Can
Oh,
you
I should
tell
do it
just
on
from
you.
looking at me?
I
I'm
should.
just curious.
I've got suspicions. I think you are very. I think you're probably very high in your I energy because you're a natural communicator and bring people around you, and you've got
Oh
an
my God.
energy of
You guys, I'm high
communicating.
in my I energy. That's what I'm
That's what I think. That's what I
that's
think.
what I'm
Anyway,
feeling.
anyway,
That's what I'm
yeah.
feeling. Here on the Stoned Fruit Roll-Up every Thursday on at 1 p.m. Eastern. Oh geez, 2. Let's start again. Rebecca doing the setup for the show. Take 2 here on the Stoned Fruit Take 3 here on the Stoned Fruit Roll-Up every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and 5 p.m. where you are in the UK. My guest is Julia Darlington, and we are exploring her business, Julia Darlington Coaching and Consulting. She's telling us her story, and I am taking furious notes as I unpack the articulation of her brand out of a blank slate, out of a total echoless chamber in which we're having a quality conversation, and I'm interpreting her special sauce as we speak. Shout out to Tony Pareco in the comments, our loyalist Stone Fruit participator and friend of the show. You've seen Tony on a few episodes here, so I'd like to say thank you for coming by and our live stream. Back to you in the studio, Julia. Tell me about that kind. Tony has a question. He always has a question. He's such an awesome
What do
participatory.
you coach on, and how do you need to develop? How do I
Oh
want?
my God. I'm so glad you asked that question because we are absolutely transitioning into what you can coach on. And I'm like a dog with a bone about helping people navigate change. And I'm wondering how much of that has to do with it. And Tony, you'll love this conversation about navigating change. As that's a big
Well,
lift.
in terms of what I coach on, at the beginning of my journey, I suppose I would have called myself a life coach, but I was going through a process of what is my niche, how can I help individuals, what is my passion. I evolved it very much into the whole business side of things because I come from a very commercial background, so helping female entrepreneurs to start their journey and to build strategy and action plans to create, a successful business. But the two bits for me, you cannot do the strategy, the planning. You cannot be a truly, in my books, you cannot realize your true potential unless you work on this. It's an inside job. It's an inside job. You could have all the tools, all the plans, all the structures, all the knowledge, all the know-how. But if this isn't with you, you will never fully potentialize where you could go because you'll self-sabotage, you'll limit yourself, I could sit and talk about it for absolutely hours. So it's very much, I bring together quite an unusual combination because I coach, I consult. So a true coach that is 100% just coaching, and I'm any coach that there, you can come and shoot me if you disagree with this, that's fine. But fundamentally, you're asking questions. You're not giving the answer. You are helping and supporting your client to open up possibilities, open up thinking that they've never thought before, but for themselves. You're not giving answers. You're not saying, well, I think you should do this and I think you should do that. It's exploring gently and giving the space. It's giving the space to the client, which I do.
That's why I'm not all fully in on the coaching thing, Julia, because I've got my little whistle like, let's rewrite that copy.
Yeah, but the other side of it,
Finish
Rebecca,
pizza.
but the other side I think is what you're saying. I've worked in industry, in business for the time I have. If I've got some solutions, tips, practical information that I can impart to somebody that is going to expedite their journey, enable them to get where they want to get to faster, I'm not going to just sit my mouth and not say anything. I'm not going to sit there for hours trying to get them to realize it for themselves. So I do. Actually, there's a lovely lady that I know called Jen, who's American, and we do different things but similar things. And we were in a dialogue. I was doing some coaching with her, and she said, why do you separate out, which is an interesting one on my website, is something to sort of debate and discuss. I went through great pains to separate out coaching and consulting, because I believed earlier on in my journey that I needed to clarify that, because I thought the audiences would be different. I didn't realize that actually when I'm coaching a client, I'm consulting and coaching and mentoring and advising as she put it, I didn't say it this way, she said, in a very seamless manner. You know when to consult, you know when to coach, you know when to mentor, you know when to advise. So I would say that is one of my USPs, that I have the ability to bring all of that to the table. Going back, apologies to the question that was asked. So I started this journey very much going down that female entrepreneur route. However, it's evolving and developing, and I've become really, really interested in leadership, because it's leadership for you to achieve whatever it is you want in your life, whatever it is. It's twofold. It's leadership of self. You have to lead yourself first. Like I said earlier, it's an inside job. It's about knowing who you are. And then it's the other side of the coin, is coaching others, or coaching the leader or your team or whoever else it may be. But it has to start with self. It has to start with self. And because I've come from, like I said, a female dominated industry, and I've experienced the journey of going up that ladder, and the journey that many, if not all, women are facing to greater and lesser degrees, of the unique challenges, because obviously the world is changing, and us having a place in this world, and all the stuff that's going on with regards to equality and equity and all of those things. I actually am getting more and more impassioned about that. And I was thinking about this before I came on the call. I wouldn't call myself a political activist in any shape or form. However, I feel as I'm getting deeper into the journey, I may be becoming a little bit more political in my thinking around it. But my focus predominantly is women, senior women in leadership. But I'm putting that in inverted commas, because I've had numerous conversations with women who are in senior leadership roles, who are going through the menopause and going through big question marks around what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. Women who've been made redundant and similarly are really, really questioning, what they're doing. The industry has been annihilated, as I said earlier. So there's a lot of people out there, and there's not a lot of roles. And I do coach some men. I love men. I don't want anybody to think that I'm anti-men at all, because I'm not. But my passion is empowering women, giving them the self-belief and the confidence and the self-esteem, or not giving it to them, helping them find it for themselves, to be able to, yes, you can bloody have it. Yes, you can. Some of the clients I've had, when I've explored what do you want? What does the picture look like? What is the vision? If you could wake up tomorrow morning and you could have exactly what you want, what would it be like? And I've been met with so much discomfort around even admitting it to themselves. And when I've asked what's the number? What's the number that you'd like to generate in your business? Oh, well, no, just give me a number, any number. Well, any number. Is it 100 grand? Is it 500 grand? Is it a million? Is it 20 million? Is it? I'm not going to hold you to it. Just give me a number. Just give me some sort of idea, some sort of sense. of it. There's no right or wrong. It's just so that we can then plan strategically what we might do to get to that point. And it's opening up that dialogue and conversation that it's all right. It's all right. And I've had women say to me, can I have that? Can I? And I'm like, too bloody right, you can. Of course you can. I'm not going to say it's easy necessarily, but if that's what you want and that's what you're focusing on, that's what we'll work toward. And now working because I am very, very fortunate that I'm actually now working in a capacity with those two wonderful women that coached me all those years back.
That's an amazing full circle story.
I know.
That's
and
amazing.
I'm an associate for their business. So I started with them just before Christmas.
How
last
cool
year.
is that?
I know.
Sorry,
I'm gabbing. I'm talking too much.
No, you're not talking too much. This is your platform. Julia, I'm curious though who your people are. Are they corporate defectors who are hanging out their own shingle and starting a business for themselves? Are they still working within the corporate structure and you need to help them build a career? Where are they in their journey? Who are they?
They're both. They're both actually.
Tell me more about your people.
If I look at the clients that I'm currently working with, I have clients who are business owners who did work in corporate and started a business and now want help to scale and grow it. But I've more recently started building a client base that's also got first appointment CEOs, first appointment MDs, COOs, senior women who are in corporate. And I've talked to a lot of the women that I know in my sphere who are now people who've worked for me who are now very senior in the fashion industry. And one woman that comes to mind, a lovely lady called Gill, who works for a big American company. She works for Anthropology, but based in the UK. And when we had a conversation and a dialogue, I'm sure she won't mind me sharing it, around what had some of the challenges been for her as she went up the ladder. One of the biggest challenges was when I finally was sort of jettisoned up the ladder into this role, I had no role models. I had no female role models to draw on because she'd worked for Arcadia and worked with me there. There were a lot of male leaders, and she said, and I knew I didn't want to lead like that. I didn't fit. She said, I didn't fit the sort of normal, this is what you must look like and this is how you must be. Most of the women, and I'm not saying that's the case now necessarily, but I certainly experienced it when I was on my journey. Women were, in some instances, told, but had been conditioned very much into believing that the only way that I can succeed is if I emulate the male, masculine leadership traits. And some of that was very bullying, was very, we're all masculine and feminine. You're not one thing or another. So I'm certainly not saying having masculine traits.
It's all made up. I think it's really about dominant versus non-dominant rather than male versus feminine versus masculine. It's just dominant versus non-dominant. Adopting assimilation. I'm curious, Julia, do you think that you are a leadership style coach?
What do you mean by a leadership style coach?
Leadership style is very much a part of the conversation within, executive leadership coaching. And some people are fear-based leaders, and some people are influence leaders, and some people are, I don't know what all of the leadership styles are, but what I'm hearing from you is not so much like, okay, women leaving corporate who want to set up our own business, or women who are still in the corporate model. What I'm hearing from you is I help women who are very smart, high powered, senior, have been on this big blue marble for quite a while, kind of create a professional life on their own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that by finding a leadership style that really speaks to your like extended disc energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter the environment that you're in. You're either building a team of 2 people, with your little micro business, or you're building a team of 2,000 people in the global
Mm-hmm.
arena. All of those things all come back to what my leadership style is. And I kind of love that
Mm-hmm.
for you because of the fashion
Yeah.
wordplay of I'm a stylist for your leadership skills. And
Yeah.
I can help you, kind of like, I mean, we could go forever on this analogy of like, put tired fashions to bed that no longer serve you. Hang that up in your closet or whatever it is. But essentially, what does a stylist do? It brings out what looks best, feels great, has incredible materials, or you'll have to tell me what a stylist actually does. But from what I'm seeing on the outside, people who have stylists are being dressed. And if you're a leadership style coach, I'm just exploring this idea. If
Yeah.
you're a
Yeah.
leadership style coach, you're helping people decide what's in their toolkit that will serve them the best, make them feel confident, make them feel great, be fashionable, not be dated, be good for the world, etc. And whatever their arena is, whatever their personal runway is, whether it's a senior leadership job at a high level retail, or it's being a coach themselves, or it's kind of taking their unique skill set that they learned in corporate and applying it towards their own small business. The runway doesn't matter, but the style does. I'm asking if
Yeah.
that's a thing.
No, I think that's really interesting because actually there are a lot of misconceptions around leadership. Really, really effective, powerful leaders, and the official term is situational leadership. You adapt your style according to the situation. So sometimes you need to be very directive and have a very directive leadership style. For example, if you're in a situation where you're in crisis management, whereas there are other scenarios where you would be very participative and you would lead with your team. There are other scenarios where you would coach. There are lots of different types
Just
of
like there would be a
leadership.
time you'd wear a dress or trousers or
Yeah,
overalls
yeah.
or a miniskirt or Doc Martens or Louis Vuitton. I'm trying to
No,
say
absolutely.
Louis Vuitton, Louis Vuitton. There are times when the clothes that you're wearing, I'm really kind of forcing this analogy, but it's interesting to me. There are times where to dress appropriately and in style and feel great about yourself. You're looking at your environment, you're looking at what's in your closet or your toolkit, you're looking at the people you're going to be going out with. Like, do you want to be the one in the sexy black dress and slingbacks when everyone else is in jeans and Doc Martens throwing axes? Like, you have to, coordinate. If you're at a wedding, you're coordinating maybe with your date. There's something there to me about a
Yeah,
leadership style, and not just one style. To your point of like,
absolutely.
sometimes you need to be direct, sometimes you need to be inspirational, sometimes you need to lead with curiosity, sometimes you need to learn with passion. And I help you, basically build
And I
your
think
closet.
that's true of self as well. How you lead yourself. Sometimes you lead yourself with compassion and kindness and
Exactly.
softness and gentleness. And sometimes it's like kick yourself up the arse and get going and lead yourself with, really directive, stop pussyfooting around and sort of get off your backside. And I think actually a fellow connection, Melina from P20,
Who was
one of
on
the
here
things,
doing live coaching?
yeah,
Definitely.
I know, and I listened to it and it was wonderful. It was
That's
absolutely
awesome.
wonderful. But one of the things that she brought to the table, I think it was one of our Rise calls, or maybe it's when I had a conversation with her, that I just thought was so powerful, was that most leadership styles were sort of created back in the 1940s,
That's exactly
1950s,
right.
when the world is not the world that we're in now at all, by any shape or form, lots and lots of different reasons. And therefore, there needs to be, I really believe this, Rebecca, with a passion, the world needs women. And I'm not saying they don't need men. I'm not saying that at all.
We have
All of
plenty of
us,
them. Okay. I'm just going to
yeah.
say that.
But the way the world has evolved and is evolving, it is time. It is time. I really believe it is time for women to step up and into that sphere because I don't believe that this world will survive without us. And I
Like
think,
literally.
yeah, I do.
Like literally.
Yeah, I do. And I think we are in a new paradigm. And how we lead is, for me, a huge focus of attention in terms of what we now need versus what we did need. And how we can bring everybody on the journey. So it isn't just about, I'm going to do this with women and I'm going to ignore men by any stretch of imagination, because the only way we're going to get where we want to get to is that we do it together. It has to be. It's not about, somebody said to me in a conversation, I host a fortnightly business breakfast for a female membership company called Albright in the UK. And I do a fortnightly business breakfast on Zoom. And I bring a topic to the table that's sort of usually a combination of business and mindset, and I open it up as a dialogue and I facilitate the conversation in the virtual room. And I also hosted a face-to-face event in the club for International Women's Day, talking to an amazing woman about DE&I and all the involvements and developments there. And somebody put their hand up and said, is it just another thing that we have to do, that we have to change the dial, that we have to make it better? And the reality is, bloody hell, if we wait for us to do it on our own, we'll all be dead by the time we get anywhere close to where we want to get to.
I also heard. Sorry,
Sorry,
honey. I just wanted to contribute that I also heard a thought leader speak on this topic. It was about International Mother's Day or International Women's Day, and said, "Look, if women could have ended the patriarchy, they would have done it already. If disenfranchised populations could have ended all the isms, they would have done it on their own. They would have done it already."
Yeah.
So it is a together moment, because
absolutely.
So there's no woman I've ever met in my life who was like, "Oh, I have the power to end patriarchy. I'm good." Like, that's not a thing. And so we have to do it together.
Yeah,
I just wrote a little note on my notebook that was for you. That's threads together on a little play on heads together. So you need to go back on Heads Together, the podcast, and do an episode titled Threads Together. And you're kind of like leadership stylist shtick that we're working towards.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about this and see if I can't help you really articulate this. I'm super excited about playing with the idea of like a leadership stylist type of, of talking about how you help people in your coaching practice and based on all your years of experience. So I think the point of action for you and me to do is to get back together and do some more work on this. But I do feel like we've turned a little bit of a corner, going from like helping, women entrepreneurs do the thing to I help you fully develop your leadership style, and that closet is versatilely packed with outfits for any occasion, and you're fully adaptable, you're flexible, you're dressed to impress in a way. Like, I'm kind of working through all the fashion wordplay that I can play with, and there's a lot to work with there. So I think it would be very interesting to tie your fashion industry with your coaching practice. And to me, it's around leadership style. So I hope that sounds fun to talk about.
It sounds very fun.
I think we should get back together and do a little bit more work around that concept. Would you be up for that?
I'd love to, Rebecca. I'd love to. Definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
Fabulous. Julia, tell people where they can find you and how they can work with you. How can people get in on all this delicious coaching to find your leadership
very
style
easily,
icons?
Very easily. You can either jump onto my website, which is www.juliadarlington.com. So very easy. And there is, right down the bottom of the landing page, there is an option for you to book in a time with me, book in a chat so that we can have a conversation. So down here, exactly where you've just gone past, where it said signed up.
There it is.
Yeah, there. You can sign up, you can contact me, you can connect with me. And you can contact me on my email address, which is julia@juliadarlington.com. So again, very, very easy to pop me an email. You can connect with me via LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on there. So you can send a message directly on LinkedIn because I'm on it every day. So, and I am on other socials, but I don't actively engage hugely on Instagram and Facebook. But watch this space. Watch this space. So yes, I'm very easy to get to.
I love Watch This Space. And anyone else out there who's interested in coming on the Stoned Fruit Roll-Up and getting a little, fly by the seat of your hot pants and get some live coaching, I encourage you to go to stonedfruit.com/coaching, where you can apply and be on the show, just like our brave and wonderful Miss Julia Darlington. What a fun conversation.
Yeah,
I loved getting to
fabulous.
know you. And I'm super excited about seeing if we can develop this idea a little bit further so that we can reach your home run goals of, I need to be able to articulate this in a way that is unique and fresh and resonating and deep and powerful. And I see a way to do it. So let's
love it. Love it.
Get a little time offline. Thank you for coming on the
Thank
Stoned Fruit Roll-Up, our weekly live show here on YouTube at Stoned Fruit, and also on LinkedIn every Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Please go visit Julia at her website. Just follow her, connect with her on LinkedIn. I know I will be, because this is a brand to watch. Julia, thanks for being a part of us.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Today. Yeah, my pleasure. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week. Oh, next week is an intergalactic takeover. Intern Saturn is going to launch the Stoned Fruit Discord, creating communities in outer space. I love it.
Blimey.
See you then. Yeah, blimey. Indeed.